Hey guys, it's Kaz here, and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in January. So let's just dive straight in. So the first book I read was called Violence Begets. In fact, I'm going to stand over here because it was on my e-reader by, I want to say P.T. Denny's. I think that's right. It'll be here, you'll see. Anyway, this was the first book I read and I really enjoyed it. It's something that I've had on my Kindle for many years. So I'm glad that I got it off there and read it. It was because I needed to read a V book for my Scrabble TBR, so I'm glad that came up because I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. It made me cry. If you saw my goals video, you'll know that I want to cry more at books. I want to read more harrowing books because it's something that I really enjoy. I enjoy getting emotional and crying at books, and this book made me cry a lot, so it was a win. So this book is dual perspectives. It follows both of these characters that I'm not going to tell you the name of because I don't know. If you've been here, you know that I'm terrible with names. They have names, and one of them is dealing with a really harsh family life. So basically his brother died and he's getting the blame for it, so his dad is just horrible to him, and his stepmom just like doesn't want him in the picture, and he's got a younger sister, so they're trying to like not make her know that stuff's bad. But yeah, he's dealing with a really bad home life, and he deals with it by being just like shy and not really like having friends and stuff. On the flip side, this other guy has a bad home life, but he deals with it by being very vicious and very controlling. He has a group of people around him that he controls, and they're like his friends, but they're not really his friends. They're just people that have gathered because he knows that he can tell them what to do, and he knows that he can make them feel shit about themselves, and he does that because that's how he deals with this stuff. And he decides that this shy guy seems like a really easy person that he can manipulate, and then it finds out that not so easy to manipulate. They both like start realizing that they're both dealing with stuff. They're both trying to help each other, and then there's some like romance in there as well. It's very dark, a lot of trigger warnings for all the things, and it made me cry loads, so I was very happy, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So yes, the first book I read, really enjoyed. After that, I finally got around to Queen by Vichette Shum. This I've had for a few months because I got it as an ARC, but I just didn't get around to reading it, and I enjoyed this one. It wasn't my favourite. I gave it sort of middling. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. It wasn't the best. Basically, this is about a girl. I've got the book here, so I can actually tell you her name, Soma, and it's about her dealing with her family and also school stuff and also self stuff. She's also a poet, so there's a lot of lyrics in here that personally for me I wasn't a massive fan of. I said this randomly in like a throwaway line in one of my previous videos, I can't remember what it was, but I feel like a lot of the time if books have rapping in or poetry, it's just not as good as I think it should be for the way that the characters are being portrayed, that it's really good. I'm not saying it's terrible, but like it was so basic in here. Let me just find some, because obviously it's written in a different way. So I've just flicked to a random page. This isn't even like the basicest, but I'll tell you. So it says, she's not backing down when she draws the renown industrial crown, making the sound of immigrant ground. Don't step on this round, don't get lost, get found. It's just really basic stuff. There's no multis, there's no mixing it up, there's no like rhyming verse 1, 2 and 4 and having a little like bit. It's just very basic, and it's like supreme, blableem, shmushmeem, flafleem, you know, it's very that, and it just doesn't give the impact that I would like it to have. I really enjoy grime. Maybe that's the reason that I'm like more heavy on this, because there are a lot of like really interesting ways that words are used when you listen to grime. There's good multis, there's good like metaphors and similes and just like loads of different things. But in this book, and I find in a lot of books dealing with this sort of thing, they're just very basic, but then they're like being hyped about as if they're really good. But yeah, other than that, I enjoyed the story. It wasn't my favourite. I didn't really connect to it as much as I would have liked to. So we got to see about her family life, but I wanted more. We got to see her friendships, but I wanted more, you know what I mean? It's like that sort of thing. And also on the back of it, it talks about becoming viral because of one of her videos, and that is such a not a part of this at all. Like right at the beginning, she does do a TikTok, I think. Is it called TikTok in here, or is it some other pretend thing? I can't remember. But she does like a TikTok, let's just say, of one of her poems, and it gets like a few hundred or whatever, so she keeps looking at it throughout like, oh look, there's more people that are listening to it, but it's not like a main point at all. It doesn't really introduce anything into the story. It's just sort of like, oh, that happened. So yeah, I don't know why it says that as if it's a big thing. But yeah, I did enjoy it to a point. I did enjoy the family stuff, like I said, but I wanted more, and yeah, glad I finally read it though. These next three I'm just going to talk about all together. I didn't read them all together, but it's all the same series, so I might as well talk about them together. So we have The Unwritten Volume 1, 2 and 3. So the first volume is called Tommy Taylor and the Bogus Identity. Number 2 is Inside Man. And number 3 is Dead Man's Knock. So this is a series. This first one I actually read for the first time. I had a look on Goodreads. I think it was 2018, so it was a long time ago. But I never carried the series on, but I remembered really liking it. So I was like, you know what? I want to reread that and see if I like it as much as I remember liking it. And if I do, actually carry it on. Because I did already have Volume 2. I bought Volume 3 in January. But yeah, I really enjoyed it again. This is a story about Tommy. It's really easy because his name's right there. And his dad is this famous author who wrote this children's fantasy book series about a boy named Tommy. So he's very much had that his whole life, like, oh, it's Tommy from the Tommy series, but his dad's been missing for 10 years, and then everything kicks off, and it's just really interesting. It's a fantasy, there are weird things going on, there are a bunch of murdery things going on as well, there's people after him, there's people framing him for stuff that he didn't do, and also there's this weird thing that happens with words, like words are becoming things, and it's just really cool. So that's pretty much the main basis of the storyline. Obviously I don't want to get into these two too much because it's carrying on, but it's a very interesting series and I've never heard anyone talk about it, so there you go. If it sounds interesting, maybe give it a go. And I'll just show you the artwork as well. So it looks like this. Not my favourite sort of artwork, but it's definitely a really intricate and interesting story, so I kind of look past the fact the art isn't my fave, but it's still decent enough to enjoy. I guess we're about halfway through, so let's head on over to a message from one of the sponsors, and then I'll be back with the rest of the books. After that I read another book on my Kindle, which was There Will Be Phlogiston by Alexis Hall. This one was for the Buzzwordathon. You had to have a book with there, or therein, and this was like the only book I owned in any sort of way, physical, ebook, on my library app. Like this was the one that I could read, so I had to read this one. It wasn't crazy long, it was like maybe like 150 pages maybe, so novella size? I don't know what counts as a novella. But this was based in this weird sort of kind of potentially steampunky sort of era, and it's about these characters and just like a romancy sort of thing. So basically there is this girl that's like from nobility and she's gonna marry this guy, but it's like really boring and shit. And then there's a guy who is like new in town but is rough, and he's from this weird place in the sky, so everyone thinks he's like not posh and doesn't fit in and all that jazz. And then there's another guy who is like upper class and seems very regal, but also he's hiding the fact that he's gay because it's like whenever this time period of fake time doesn't allow that sort of stuff. And it's basically those three characters liking each other and getting together, and it's written quite whimsically as well. But yeah, I quite enjoyed it. It was a fun time. It wasn't like crazy smutty or anything. There were a few sex scenes, but it wasn't like just smut. It was just like this whimsical story of these three characters, and the way it was written was just like, if that is a way to express a book, which it is now because I just decided. But yeah, it was alright. It was another one that I've had on my Kindle for a long ass time, so I got to it again because something told me I had to. The V told me to read Violence Begets. Books and Lala told me to read this because they're there and there. So, there. Next up, I read The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. And I really enjoyed this one as well. It was a good reading month. This one is weird. I think it's Kat from Brews and Reviews, but it might not have been. It was somebody, I can't remember exactly, but somebody mentioned this book and a part of this book with a worm in a foot, and I was like, that sounds weird and I am intrigued. I already had the book, but I thought it was going to be a lot like more squeamish and weird than it was. I was reading it, I was like, oh, is that it? It's just a worm in a foot, that's fine, pull it out. But yeah, it was an interesting one. It's very fantastical. It's about this guy who goes back to where he used to live as a young child, and he's reminiscing about these things that happened to him. But it's like, did they happen to him? Did they not? There's a family of witches down the street. There's this thing that's being evil to him. There is also a worm in a foot. But yeah, it's another one that's quite whimsical, but in a different way. In a way that you're not sure what's real and what's not. You're not sure whether it's like a child's imagination, whether it really happened, whether it's fantasy or not fantasy. But yeah, it was interesting. I very much enjoyed it. Also my first ever Neil Gaiman book, so boom. He is an author that I've heard of forever. I have now read his book. One of them at least. Good times. After that, I read a couple of graphic novels that I got from my library. You might have seen the video. I did a library haul and I grabbed a bunch of things because my library is being shut for like 6 months for refurbish and stuff. So I decided to pick up a couple of the graphic novels that I got. The first one was The Great North Wood by Tim Bird. It's interesting. It's just like this narrative talking about how the nature got taken over by man and how back in the day different things happened and now this looks like this and these trees used to be here and now there's only one tree that's still there that shows you that it's the end of the road. It was very interesting and different. The artwork is like this as well. So it's a very simple artwork and it's just like this fox going through London. I feel like if you lived around this place it would probably make more sense because he's like going to all these different boroughs and all these different bits, and here's the map. So he's going to all these different places and he's talking about what used to be there and like stories that happened when people used to be there, and it was interesting. I actually learned some stuff, not that I remember any of it, but it was interesting, like these bandits that used to live in the woods and then this doctor guy saved the baby of one and then he forever could go through them woods without getting bandited. Then there's another story about this like old woman that used to tell fortunes. There's about this like massive tree where the queen did something or other and it stood for centuries. And yeah, it was interesting. It was different but interesting. And then after that one I read Little Nightmares. This, what I didn't know when I started it, but I did know afterwards because it said it's actually based on a game. There's a game called Little Nightmares. This is based on it. And this was a fun time. The artwork's really cool in here. The story is just like weird. It's about these different characters that have got these hoods on. I don't know if it makes more sense if you've seen or played the game. But it's like these different characters and then these like weird stuff's happening to them and how they got to this place. And the artwork's really cool, so just for that I don't even mind the fact that I got this random thing that's also a game. But yeah, I had a fun time with this. Like I said, the artwork was really good. It was creepy in different ways. It didn't make as much sense as it probably would do if I had played the game, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. After that I read The Tower Hill Terror by our very own Dane Cobain, who is a booktuber here. If you don't follow him, go follow him. This is the second book in his, I want to say trilogy because there are 3 books out, but I don't know if it's something that's like gonna carry on or not, so I'm just gonna tentatively say a trilogy. The Leopold Mysteries. And yeah, I read the first book maybe last year, maybe even the year before last actually, and I actually quite enjoyed it. I was a little bit apprehensive because it's like a police sort of, because he's not actually a police, it's like murder mystery sort of thing, and like I'm a bit hit or miss with them, but I actually really enjoyed the first one of these and I really enjoyed the next one as well. So it's based on Leopold, who is this private eye investigator guy, and he's trying to solve the mysteries of the murders, and it's really good. I really enjoyed it. It's cool because it doesn't just show his perspective. We'll get like bits from Maeve, who is like the other person that works in his very small business. We'll get little hints from the police because he knows some people in the police, so we get bits and bobs from different places, which is good. So if we need to know some stuff, we'll know some stuff from the different things. And this one was a lot more bloody and a lot more like murder than the first one. The first one was like, oh, a girl's got hit by a car. Was it an accident? Was it not? This one is like, oh, there's a body and it's like really fucked up. It was definitely a murder. So yeah, it's a lot more bloody than the last one. And it was a fun time. If that can be a fun time, the bloody murder of people. It can be. We all know. And I'm definitely looking forward to reading the next book. I am definitely going to read it this year as well. One of my goals is going to be like finishing some series, and that one's going to be finished unless it's not a trilogy, and then it won't be finished, but it will be up to date, or at least with the books that I have of this said late fog mysteries. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one and I'm glad I got around to reading it. I think I pulled this one. Did I pull this one out of my little scrolls? I think I did, so I'm glad I did because I've read it and now I'm definitely going to read the next one soon. This year, for sure. And last but not least, another book that I've had for years that I pulled out of my scrolls cup, mug, bag, basket, bowl is the word I'm looking for. My scroll bowl. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go and watch one of my TBR videos. But yes, I've had this one for ages and I finally got around to reading it. This one is very much about religion, but like not normal religion, not like, hey, this person is religious, but you know that sort of American Christianity that you see that's like, we are so religious that we're actually just like doing everything against everything that the Bible says because we're horrible and we're nasty and we're mean to people, even though the Bible says the opposite, but listen to us because we're important. Those sort of Christians is very much that. So it's basically this guy, Ethan Poe, is at his school and there are these two candidates running for like school governor or school summit or other, and basically one of them wants to force intelligent design to be taught as science and the other one is like, don't be an idiot, it's not science, it's religion. And it's just like a whole host of like battleground, but very much most of it coming from the very right-wing Christians that are like being extremely horrible about the fact that they are right and intelligent design is science because we said so. So it's very that, but also he's dealing with his sexuality, so that is in place as well. Obviously these people are also going to be anti that, but it was a fun time. I really enjoyed the book. Obviously it was like infuriating at the same time, but it was a good book. I enjoyed it. There was a really nice friendship in here with him and the candidate who was like for the don't be an idiot, intelligent design is religion, not science. And she's like this old woman. I say old, I can't remember whether she's like 60s or 70s or something, and then he like makes this unlikely friendship with her, which I really enjoyed. And then we have his family are dealing with some really like loads of stuff as well because his parents are breaking up and his brother has become extremely right-wing Christian to the point where he's done that whole cut off your right hand to spite your other hand. I can't remember the exact thing it is, but somewhere in the Bible it says something about cutting off your right hand, and he was like, and I took that seriously and I took that personally, and he's like not using his right hand for anything, forcing himself to like hurt his right hand to the point where he has that, I can't remember what it's called, but there's some sort of like psychological disease where people like think that a part of them is so wrong that like the only way for them to deal with it is to cutting them limb off, that limb off. Like it's a real thing that people are like, oh, this leg is not me, I'm gonna like wreck it until it needs to get amputated because that's the only way I can deal with it. He like gets those sort of symptoms, so he was very much dealing with loads of stuff in here, but it was good. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I've had it for ages, so I'm so glad that I pulled this one out of the scrolls as well. The scroll bowl is here for me getting stuff off my TBR that I've had for ages, and I enjoyed both of them, so boom, it was a win. So there we have it. That was all the books that I read in January. Let me know down below what you read in January, if you read any of these, if any sound interesting, all that jazz. You know what it's there for. Do the things if you want, subscribe if you want, like if you want, comment if you want, but only if you want. And I'll be seeing you in a few days with another video. Bye.